Guys, come on. It's time to do the podcast.
Yep.
What are you doing?
You fidget too much. We're gonna fix it.
What?
This is my solution.
What? Dad, what's happening? I think I need Dutch in the USA.
Welcome to the Impact Defense Podcast. We're dedicated to giving you the information that you need to help keep you safe. Now, let's join our hosts, Brian and Jada.
All right, guys, we are back, and today we have a special guest. Dutch in the USA is with us.
What's up, guys?
So if any of our listeners are not aware of you, I'd like to hear a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I joined the military at 16, some sort of, I guess, comparable to the United States as a ROTC program, but this was more a program by the actual Army, so it's not like on school campus. So you do a study, which I did car mechanics in the Army, and then you do part of your basic already, and then once you graduate that, you have an easier enrollment into the military. And then I guess they did that for like having higher succession rates of people passing. Then I realized the Army is very slow. So my captain there was a Royal Marine that took over that program, which can be anyone, can be Air Force, whatever. He just happened to be a Royal Marine. And he's like, well, it seems like you have a little bit more energy and you want some more action and more intensiveness. So then I enlisted to the Royal Marines. I did that for about 5 years, and I ended up moving to the United States because my wife is American, and now we're here.
Awesome. So what got you into like escapes? What got your interest in that?
So I've always, I guess it started in the military where you get basic, what they call in America, SEER training. It's the basic escape and evade stuff, which I obviously had in the military. Then for some reason, I started doing TikTok during the pandemic, and I saw this movie scene of Chris Hemsworth breaking a zip tie, and I thought it would be cool to redo that. So I had the screen behind me showing the scene, and I kind of mirrored it. People started asking how to do that, and actually one person saw that video, realized how to do it, and was taken by her ex-spouse. And was placed in the back of her car. She was able to get out of the zip ties, open the door, get into someone else's car that was nearby, and drive to the police station. And that person got arrested and put in jail. So when I did a video about that particular story, first of all, I got a lot of support and a lot of follows from that. And then the second part was people start asking, well, then how can you do like a step-by-step? Like, how does this work and why does it work? And then it just kind of started doing that. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, what about rope, or what about heavy duty zip ties, or police cuff zip ties, or handcuffs? And it just kept getting crazier and crazier. And to a point where at some point I got annoyed with a movie scene where they're trying to choke someone with a plastic bag and he's grabbing at like the neck. And I'm like, you can just literally like either that, or you can suck in you can get out of it. They're just all these movie scenes. And kind of what is still driving me is the movie scenes pertain this picture that whoever is captured, and usually that's a woman, they are like helpless. Like there's nothing they can do. And there's serious scenes where she is wearing a bobby pin or whatever and is handcuffed. And I'm like, you can just teach what to do here. It's not that hard if you just follow a few steps, but it's always they wait for the police, or I hate that they make people seem vulnerable when they're really not. They can do it themselves, but
they portray bad guys as superheroes that you just can't escape.
Exactly. And I just don't think that's true. And it's kind of putting what bothers me most about these things is, even if it's small, there was a scene with Denzel Washington where someone zip tied to a steering wheel, and with really small zip ties. So if you understand the weights that these zip ties have, it's about 60 pounds for. The way I do it is I use my fingernail. So if it's like 25% of your fingernail, it's about 60, half is like 100, and above that, if it goes above your fingernail, it's kind of hard to get out to just break it. But she could definitely break that zip tie. But what it's doing is people are seeing that. And let's say and this is very unlikely, but what if you're in the same situation and you just saw that movie? You think you can't get out because you saw her do it and it didn't work. I'm like, then I understand it's script and it's movie, but not everyone has that same connection. Because unconsciously you're like, oh, I saw someone do that. That didn't work. So I'm not gonna try.
Yeah.
And then other parts where people are trying to break metal chains, and I'm like, you're wasting way too much energy because it's not gonna work, you know? So it's a little bit of both. And then I just kept kind of doing that and adding on, and then it was safety tips or what to do when someone comes into your house, or I haven't touched the gun part yet, where it's like, okay, how to store your gun safely, because there's just no good way to promote that.
Yeah.
One, because there's such a mixed audience on the Second Amendment, and then second of all, everyone does it their own way. I know how I store my weapon is pretty safe. It's high up. It has a biometric scan on it, like stuff like that. The ammo and the gun is separate. But there's a lot of other stuff that I want to do that I'm not doing, just because people will not resonate with it.
I understand.
Like, they expect you to sleep with a gun on your belt and just go, someone breaks in, you're like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, that's not what it is. I got kids running around, and yeah.
No, I understand. We're in the firearms industry as well. So I'm a pistol instructor, and actually both of these ladies are apprentice and assistant pistol instructors as well.
Perfect.
So basically, we went through the same training he did, but because of like age limitations and things, we can't be the full instructors until we turn 21.
Gotcha. But that's the whole point of gun safety. It's like, they ask me like, what age is good to teach kids about guns and stuff, and I'm like, it's not really a good answer. Your kid. Like my son is very hyper and has very low focus sometimes. So he will not walk with me to understand what it actually does, while my daughter will sit there and observe and look at it. And they're still too young. They're about almost 3 years old, but there's just not a good age. I think the only thing you can say is if you're comfortable using it and you are educated and you went through a course or you understand the mechanics of these things, then it becomes a much safer environment to practice. What course did you do?
Well, I have an NRA basic pistol instructor, personal protection inside the home, personal protection outside home, defensive pistol instructor, and concealed carry pistol instructor.
Gotcha.
As well as rifle and shotgun and different things. So
and do you provide courses for that?
Yeah. So we do some of our biggest stuff is we do concealed carry classes.
Mm-hmm.
Every month.
So I teach a North Carolina concealed carry permit class every single month. And that is our biggest one, of course, and we do defensive pistol and things like that as well.
And like you were saying, everyone expects us that when they hear our credential list, they expect us to be the kind of people that are like, yeah, sleep with the gun on your hip kind of people. No.
I think any reasonable person that has that, like if I was by myself, I lived alone, whatever, fine. It's just me I have to worry about. But with kids running around and my wife who is not trained in firearms, there's just precautions that I take just to be safe. And you got to be realistic. Like my door is about 2 rooms over. The moment I hear something, that gives me plenty of time. It takes me about 7 seconds to get to the gun, open it up, and load it. So how I store it is above high where the kids can't climb. So there's nothing to grab on for them. It's like where you put your t-shirts up high above in a closet. The scan itself needs my fingerprint, and then it opens, and then I keep my ammunition aside from my gun. It has bullets in it, so I just load it, and then I'm good to go. It takes about 7 seconds, and I'm a very light sleeper, so I don't see the problem with that. If someone can get from that door to here in 7 seconds, then I got other issues.
That's true. Very true.
The flash is robbing you.
Well, the thing with what I find most interesting is when I do safety tips on home security. So there's great ways, right? You have great lighting outside is one of them. That's good. Security signs, preferably an actual security system, but a sign deters as well. Having a dog, stuff like that. But their first response is always just use your Second Amendment. Yeah, and I don't think people understand what the impact is of firing a firearm on a person. Yeah. The long-term effects. But they seem to think that they are capable and can deal with the long-term effects of that, which is just proven that it's not. A lot of people will not recover from doing something like that. So I'm like, just take the steps that doesn't include hurting someone. If you have those steps and then you need the gun, okay, I'm good.
Well, you've got to decide what's worth fighting, like fighting someone or hurting someone over. Like in our state, you can't shoot someone just for being in your home. Like if they're holding your TV, trying to steal your TV, you can't use deadly force against them because they just want your TV. Like you have to use your voice, get them to leave first.
And that's why TikTok.
Then if they start threatening you, then you have the right.
Yeah.
But they have to be, you have to either believe that you are under threat of death, maiming, or rape. Like you have to be sure that one of those things is going to happen before you can use deadly force. And I'm okay with that because there are some people that I really do not believe should have firearms because I think they are way too eager to use them. Like they're just like, I'm just ready for the day that someone tries something so I can just shoot them. Oh my God, you really should not own one. You should.
And without getting in too much of politics, it's you can't deny the statistics of country not having guns against and then not having fun. If I try to have a conversation and I, for instance, bring up Australia, who banned their weapons after the massacre at Port Arthur, I believe, there's not been a mass shooting since. Actually, that's not true. I think there was one recently. But other than that, the decline in violence with guns is there. It's statistically proven. If that is not part of the discussion, or then there's no point of having the discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm going to take your guns away. I mean, I'm a foreigner in America. I'm very careful what I say about Second Amendment. But you should have steps to protect yourself. And obviously, it's very hard with like TikTok and stuff because I live in Florida. So when someone does enter my home, I have the authority to neutralize that person, so to say. But my videos go everywhere. So I
know.
Some people say like, okay, well, I live in the UK, I can't do that, or this, or there's one country, and I believe it was Sweden, is that if you, whatever you have on you, and it doesn't need to be a firearm, if you use that in your self-defense, it's called a self-defense item. So if you're walking with an umbrella, you used it, it's still considered a weapon. I'm like, and you can't have that. I'm like, okay, well, how does that work? I have my keychain with me, and now I used it, and now it's considered a deadly weapon. All right.
Yeah. Now, some of the laws and some of the surrounding self-defense is vastly different across the world. And we, even when we've done stuff on pepper spray and using some improvised weapons, we get some people coming back going like, well, we can't do that here. It makes it very, very hard. And very
actually one of my things that I like to carry on me that is not a gun is actually a baton. I took classes with the baton, and the impact that you can have with a small thing like that is insane.
It is true. Yeah.
But once again, I don't think UK can have it, the Netherlands. And even in the Netherlands, like you can own a weapon, but you have to drive a certain route to the range. You can't carry it with you everywhere. It's not like you can drive from one city to another and just carry it. You can only drive to the range, and if you get pulled over outside of your route that you submitted to the bureau that controls this, they take away your license, they give you a very hefty fine, and they take away the weapons and everything. Which is it's a little too much, but our country is also not, there's no legalizations of guns there, so it's not common. And people that do get approved for having a gun are very aware of the strict rules and the repercussions it has. If they get caught outside of that. But America is vastly different.
I mean, even from state to state, it's vastly different as well.
Yeah.
Someone asked us about the firearms laws in a different state. We're just going, we don't know. It doesn't apply to us because we're in the state we're in. We should know the state laws of where we are, but we can't know about every one of the 50 states' different rules because it would be impossible to keep track.
Yeah, and then you have to recertify yourself on every single state, and that's. I hope you have a big bank account if you want to do that. And then you have the more stricter ones. Like Florida is pretty open, right? They are very perceptive to owning firearms, but other states are not. Like I know New York is a lot stricter.
Mhm.
California is a lot stricter. So I guess we'll see where it goes. I think you're gonna have a fight for the rest of America's existence between people that don't want guns in the country and people that do. I think there should be a middle ground where, like the background checks and waiting to receive the gun and stuff like that are within reason.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where my standpoint is on that.
Well, you mentioned, I'm curious, I'm kind of jumping subjects here. But you mentioned talking about like putting your first little video up on TikTok. What drove you to TikTok in the first place?
COVID. I was bored. I mean, I went from going out with my kids, like with my kids, you go to the playgrounds, whatever, they went to school. So you see all these people, whatever, going into work, and pretty hectic lifestyle if you look back on it, like
Mhm.
dropping your kids off, going to work, running from meeting to meeting, it was so intense. And then at night, because you're so tired, you're like, okay, let's do a date night or something. And that was just more like something we did to reward ourselves for having a week like that. And then that all of that stopped. And I wasn't really on Facebook. I mean, I had an Instagram, but it was more like to see what my friends were doing and stuff. And then my wife was like, well, this thing came out. I mean, it was already out, obviously,
Yeah.
but I didn't know about it. And I just started scrolling, and then the first hour was kind of boring because it's showing you all kinds of videos that you don't know if you like. But once you started liking a few and interacting with it, it started giving me more content of what I like. So then you get sucked in. So I think for the first week, it was like I'm on there, like I sit down, kids are asleep, everyone's good. And I look up, it's 12 o'clock. I'm like, what happened? Like it's 4 hours. So I just found that very intriguing. And then it took about 6 months to get 20,000 followers. And obviously in the beginning, if you look, I privated a lot of the older videos, and some are still up, but I think my content was hilarious. Like I thought it was the best thing ever. And then, I mean, I guess you got to find what works for you and what people like to see. So
Mhm.
once I started getting into the escape, I kind of put the rest on private and just started doing the escape stuff, which has it's not just saving people. Like there's been at least 3 people that I actually verified their story, right? So I asked them if they went to jail and what happened and court dates, whatever, to really fact check what I'm saying is true. But there's been like 11 people that reached out like, hey, that video, this is what happened and this is what I did. And it potentially saved my life. For like 4 or 5 of them, I know it saved their life. Like there was one lady who was camping with her husband, and her husband was like trying to end her and her kids with that. So he tied her to a pole and then was like getting stuff out of the car to end it all. And that guy was actually discharged, put in jail, and like all kinds of crazy stuff. But the tremendous impact that it's having, what I like the most is people that just like, hey, I'm feeling very unsafe going out. I don't know what to do about it, but watching your videos gives me a little bit more confidence that I feel like I could know what to do. And I think that's the biggest impact and why it grew so fast. Because I went from 20,000 followers to almost like 2.5 by the end of the year. So it took a very long time to get somewhere, and then out of the blue, it just skyrocketed.
Yeah, I think once you're and just kind of taking a little bit of a guess here, but I think once you're actually making content that helps other people, you tend to grow a whole lot faster. I know that's what we kind of experienced as well.
Yes.
And it doesn't get a lot of hate. I'm terrible with hate. Like I can get 100 good comments and 1 bad comment will ruin my day. It just people naturally attract to negative thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't stand the hate that's not even relevant.
And that's why I like this content, because there's not much to hate. Like obviously you get the martial artists, right? My technique is better. That doesn't work in real life, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to, like I had a video being choked and I gave 3 options in there. And the reason why I did that, it's not that I think all 3 are the greatest. Like I'll do my own technique that I know works for me, right?
Mhm.
But I do that to not piss off other people and just provide them the options.
Yeah.
Because the
If you
truth
disagree
is
with
like,
one, odds are there's one that you don't disagree with.
yeah, a lot of people like they believe that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the best thing ever. I'm like, well, statistically, if you look at it, your ground game is very good, but up until the point that you're on the ground, I don't think that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the best way to deal with this.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't. I think the best thing that I can say is I prefer Krav Maga, just because it ends things before I get to the ground or before that. It's very proactive in a sense, and there's just no debate that works. I mean, it just works. But everyone has their own technique. But people have said like, "Oh, kickboxing is the best thing ever." I'm like, you're using an attack sport against self-defense. Like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I have no doubt you're great at kickboxing, but it's not. It's boxing. It's kicking, and it doesn't help against grappling or being on the ground or, for instance, in heavier topics like rape defense or something like that. You can kick all you want, but if you don't know how to get out of a headlock or anything like that, good luck.
Yeah.
The thing we always get asked questions like, what kind of martial art do you recommend for self-defense? And we're
It
like,
really depends on the instructor.
yeah, we're like, go
Yeah,
there, look at what they do, pressure test it, slowly build up the momentum, and if it doesn't work, scrap it, find something else. Because there's not one martial art that covers everything.
No.
You have to build your basis. You have to fill in the holes where the holes lie. And if you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you are probably great on the ground, but you've got to find some way to stand up and figure out how to fight from there. So like if you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you might should take some kickboxing lessons too. You might should take some Krav Maga. There are all these things that you need to pull from. You can't just choose one and expect it to help you in every basis.
Well, the thing with fight sport or like self-defense sports is that 9 out of 10 times the people that have black belts or duns or anything like that will not be in a fight.
Yeah.
Because you show a certain, like, I haven't been in a fight in forever. Like maybe the last one was like 18 in a bar crawl. Yeah. But I knew how to fight. Like you show a certain level of confidence and you don't get anxious in decisions when people, like I saw a video like a few days ago by someone that teaches MMA who is legit. And he showed 3 ways of how to know that someone can fight. And one of them was like, you can have the first hit, like stuff like that. Or the pumpus that goes like, puffs up his chest. Like those things just give you away. And I guess when you understand how fighting works, you don't engage with it or you end it very fast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing that we always try to express is that there are 2 things that you can do that really cut down your chances of being a target of a violent crime in the first place, or even just petty crimes. And it's paying attention and looking confident. Because I've had someone, I take the trash to the local waste disposal.
I'll just say dump.
Okay. Take the trash to the local dump. And the guy that works there goes, "You do martial arts, right?" It's like, yes. And he's like, "The way you carry yourself is really great." He goes, "Your instructor." He said, I want to have him come out to my church and work with the security team because the way you carry yourself shows me that you must have a good instructor.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have some very bad instructors that are great at what they do, but not very good at teaching. Teaching requires patience, and not a lot of fighters have that.
That's very.
I actually see that more in the karate and judo techniques, stuff like that. Those have a lot more patience. Not too like the instructors I have had with kickboxers, boxers, always have this intensity upon them. Yeah. But when I got taught karate or Wing Chun, it's like they have this zenness to themselves. Which is great to learn. Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna get there, but I'm gonna give it a try.
So then you've done quite a few martial arts.
Yeah. So I started with boxing, then kickboxing. I did judo, karate, and then I went into the military where you have military self-defense, and then the instructor happened to teach Krav Maga. Like he went to Israel to do the course. So the fighting instructor then switched to Krav Maga, and then I learned a little bit of Sistema, which is the Russian version of Krav Maga. And then while I was in the United States, I did security work And then one of my buddies in the security work was very big into jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I worked with him on my ground work. So I've touched quite a few. I wouldn't say I mastered them all, but I mean, I feel confident I can defend myself.
I've done a lot of different things with a lot of different guys in different styles. So that's completely changed like my approach.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think having that and I'm not trying to throw off on people that basically just stick with one thing, but you know, you'll find a lot of times when somebody just sticks with one thing, they have this one singular approach, and it ends up, you end up finding out that they really don't have a full understanding of how maybe something self-defense wise really works a lot of times. Well, what I really pure in one art or something like that.
Well, what I find with people that are and I'm not taking away from the dedication. So if you have a fourth done in Taekwondo, you're very good at fighting. But it also means that you're going to refer to things that work well for you. So if you're Taekwondo, you're probably going to be very good at kicking and keep people at range. But once they're close in and take you to the ground, now you got issues.
Yeah.
That's not what you're trained for. But I mean, that doesn't take away that probably, like I said before, those people will probably never be in a street fight because they know how to fight. And if you fight against an unexperienced fighter, you're going to use what is good for you, and you're going to probably knock them out in a little bit. But that's why I like real world self-defense things. Like Krav Maga works very well because it's like you're reacting to stuff that is done in the real world, where people try to poke your eyes out or give you a knee to the groin. That doesn't happen in professional fighting or like structured karate or taekwondo or stuff like that. So I like those courses because they kind of prepare you for what people really do and how frantic they are when they fight you, or swinging arms and stuff like that. Because that's what people refer to. It's not like they're not going to be imperfect. Like, okay, now I'm gonna, you know.
that's the
rarely happens.
A lot of Greco-Roman wrestling. We do a lot of Greco-Roman wrestling for upper body controls and stuff like that. Because I try to tell my guys so much of self-defense. A lot of times, because you have an unskilled fighter, you know, you have this situation where they just close the distance. They're just swinging wildly, close the distance, and you end up falling. And that happens so much. But if you can get something like Greco-Roman, where you can go ahead and just kind of take control of that clinch range and stay on your feet or control it, you know, while standing and like that, your odds of being able to, you know, get past that situation is so much better.
Well, that's why I saw the video with the drop, flail, and wiggle and scream. That's perfect because it's I don't know how to say this, but it's so uncontrolled. It is a natural reaction of what you think you should do, just put into a step-by-step way to do it. And that's why it works. So like I have a toddler. So when I pick her up, she doesn't want to be picked up. She does exactly that as a natural response. And I drop her almost like 9 out of 10 times. I mean, I'm not all the way up yet, so it doesn't going to hurt her. But I like those. There was a cop in New York that did a fighting style technique. Oh, what is it called? I can't think of it. But basically, their first reaction is to step down, move your weight like at a good position, and put your hands up as the first reaction. So you see something coming, that's what you do. And that's actually, those kinds of techniques are very helpful because that's probably what a person's going to do when someone's going to hit. Like they duck down and they hold themselves up. So I like those techniques because it's easier to train people to do what they're naturally going to do anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing I love about things like gun takeaways or knife takeaways is the natural response is to put your hands up. You know, it's like, oh, don't hurt me. But your hands being up is the perfect position for you to actually do something. And so when I tell people that, they're just over here like, should I find an excuse to keep my hands down? You know, because they think of this as, well, they can see my hands, so they know what I'm about to do. It's like, no, this is the fastest position for you to do something.
Yeah, I find
our fighting stance is here, or our spear stance is here. It's because your hands are right where they should be for you to be able to take action.
I find it. I did one video on that, and then I didn't do it anymore. And the reason why is because there's there's so many ideas. Like, okay, so I did a lot of research on it and I looked at a lot of videos and people doing it with paintball guns on reaction time and how, what people fail to understand is if you are in serious danger, one, you have to make a decision if that person is going to shoot, which is almost an impossible decision. You won't know. You can judge based on appearances, like, am I talking to a junkie that just wants money? Am I being targeted because what? I have money, I have influence. Like, there's so many things that you have to process in like 5 seconds, right? Yes. So I kind of analyze my life like before that. So am I in a position of power? Do I have a lot of money? Does my family have enemies? All that stuff is something you should probably think about before. And I've posted about it before, but the problem with that is people don't find it interesting. It's not flashy. It's not, but those are the real things you should consider before ever being robbed or something. And then the second part is, as I'm overtaking it, I'm stepping away, but in people analyzing the video, they say I don't step away too much, how you do it. And then honestly, in the videos where they show the reaction time, they get hit 50% of the time. But what people don't see, like they'll say the statistic, okay, this works 50% of the time if you do it properly. That's one. Yeah. Second, if I do that, my goal is not to be not hit. Obviously, the ultimate goal is not to be hit, but you have to be super fast. Like, it's almost impossible. I just need him not to shoot me in the heart or vital organs that I need. If he hits my shoulder, I'm perfectly okay with that if I then have the weapon. But people don't see it that way. They're like, okay, this technique needs to, once you do it, it needs to be to a point where I didn't get hit at all. I'm like, well, sorry, sugar, but that's not gonna happen.
People don't understand action versus reaction.
Yeah, that's it.
Because whenever you're training with someone training with you in a way can make it even harder than someone in a real situation, because the person training with you knows that you're about to try and take the gun away.
Exactly.
Someone who targeted you is already expecting you to be someone who's going to comply and give them what they want. Like, they targeted you because they think you're going to comply.
Yeah.
So if you're standing here like this, please don't shoot me, they're not expecting you to try to take the gun away. So that actually takes away a little bit of their reaction time. Also, with action versus reaction, you've got to train yourself to move fast enough that, they might not even be able to pull the trigger in time because they weren't expecting it.
Well, what I usually say, it's the last resort, right? But even if I say it's the last resort, people don't read it. They're like, oh, and that's why I find TikTok becoming a little bit more toxic that way. Instagram was like that, but a lot of people criticize what other people do, but then don't provide solutions, which is probably something that bugs me. Like, if I see that, I'll sit there for an hour just fuming about, well, then you find a solution,
Would you care to show me why that doesn't work?
I try to be as composed as possible, but there's a lot of,
in the end, just keep them talking so they help your algorithm.
Just
get them running themselves in circles.
I had a person that says, which was, I don't know why it bothered me. It's like, oh, those zip ties are flimsy, do with other ones. So someone responded, well, just go back. He's like, well, that just doesn't work. I'm 11B infantry and all I do is subdue people. And then I'm just analyzing that comment. I'm like, okay, so you're 11B, which your boot camp is like 13 weeks in US Army. And I'm like, what do you mean subdue people is your job? Like, I was in the military. There wasn't like a class assigned to me, like, you're the subduer. And it just bothers me. Like, I can't get it out of my head. And I'm like, and then I get to a point where I start responding to these comments and doing bigger zip ties and whatever. And it's like, it's not worth it. It's more interesting for me.
No, I saw that chain of videos of you just like responding back to the people who are like, it doesn't work. And you're just like, when is it going to be enough? And I'm like, Brian, come here. Dutch is mad.
It's just people saying that they don't understand that it has effects. If that becomes the top comment that this is capped, this doesn't work, then people think that that's the case. And one thing I did from the very start and why I think I have a successful brand as Dutch in the USA, I won't post anything that doesn't work. That's one. Yeah. And then second, I test everything out. So if I'm working with companies that are providing me with stuff like the pepper spray, I test how far it sprays. Or in one case, I I didn't have to test it because I had pepper spray on my hands. It leaked and I touched my eyes. I'm like, okay, well, this works because I made a mistake.
Yeah, I've done that.
But I test this stuff because I think, and I make sure this is true. Like anything that I post can be done. It depends on if you have the strength, obviously, but in theory, everything can be done because I don't want to post anything that doesn't work and people need it.
Exactly.
And then I cannot live with myself if that happens.
We had a comment that's about the drop fill liquid spring, how it didn't work, and that the girl tried it with her boyfriend, and we were like, give me a second to think.
Well, I don't know why you're looking at me.
Go ahead.
She wasn't properly applying it.
She was doing it so slowly. She was like holding her arms up.
She wasn't
bringing
even
her feet
arching her
slowly
back.
up and down, not arching her back. I'm like, you look like a frog. Like,
Yeah.
what are you even doing?
Yeah, but you're still gonna get those. I had
yeah.
one. There's a way if you get caught by a bear hug, you put your hand. You have a little increase right here, right from your chest, just regularly, and especially with females, you have that space to go through. Then you grab it with the other hand and you push down on where their grip is. That works. That it just works because you're applying pressure on their fingers like that. It just works. So I saw someone do it, and her husband was like a 350-pound, 6'7" dude. I'm like, okay, it works, but you're like 60 pounds and he's like 5 times your size. Like, you should take him with you. He's your boyfriend. Like, just yeah, it just sometimes things don't work just because there's insane strong people in this world. And at that point, I'm like, there's nothing I can do about it either. I can be as good in technique as possible.
That's when you wait for another opportunity. Like he's not going to be hanging on to you like that forever. If
Yeah,
he did, what was
exactly.
the point of him grabbing you in the
But
first
you
place?
think like that. A lot of people don't. They give up after that, and that's it. That's the struggle and the win, and now they've won.
Yeah.
You just constantly have to look for opportunities to. Like there was a story about someone that was chained up for a few years, but she gained the confidence level over such a long time that eventually she escaped by just playing the part. And I'm not saying that was in any way easy for her. That will have psychological problems for the rest of her life. But to be in that mind focus, like I'm just gonna have to play this part until I find my way. But the whole point is that since we do this for enough, I mean, I don't do this for a living, but I've integrated it into my life to such a point that a lot of people ask me like, this is so much to learn, like how realistic is this? But honestly, I do this so often that it's second nature. Like for instance, the video with my kids in the car, they get into the car first, I get in, I buckle them. Obviously it depends on where I am, right? Because it's a little bit more of a hassle. If I'm at the Whole Foods and there's a security guard walking around, I'm not going to take those extra precautions. But if it's like later in the day, it's a Walgreens, there's like shading, the lights don't work, I'll do that because it's just second nature and it doesn't feel like a hassle once you learn these things.
Very true.
Yeah, once you practice that mindset so much, it's a lot easier because one thing that people don't understand that they have to practice is the don't give up mindset.
Yes.
If you give up every time something gets a little hard, you're never going to accomplish anything.
yes.
And if you give up really quickly in self-defense, you're not going to escape. The thing we try most to get across to people is you can prevent a lot just by being in the right mindset.
Yep.
One thing that drew us to your account is that you showed that determination. And we could tell that everything you put up, like you said, you test. It's like we have not tried anything that you have done that hasn't worked for at least one of us.
Yeah.
No? Like we appreciate that because we see so many people who just show things that they have learned over time just because it's tradition, and we try it and it's just like,
Yeah.
we've done this so many times and it still hasn't worked. So we're just like, well, we got to scrap it. But these people teach it because it's their tradition. We see that big problem in martial arts a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Is people will go just by tradition. And we're like, tradition doesn't work forever.
Tradition or just theory, because
Or
it sounds
theory.
like it should work really well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
When
unless you have testimonies, then it's just theory.
Unless
Yeah.
you've tested it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Exactly.
So we've really appreciated that in your stuff. And we say all the time, it's like, we love how what you do pairs so well with what we teach. It's like, because we can feel it's taken a load off of us,
Yeah.
because those questions that we get of how do you escape rope, how do you escape zip ties, we're like, go to Dutch in the USA.
When you deal with
Yeah.
the
Go to
before
him.
and you
He is
deal
the
with
best for
after.
that.
I find it hard to make the balance between knowing it. Like sometimes it's going to be a viral video, or at least get a decent amount of views
Yeah.
just because the topic is heated or it's the right time. But a lot of the things I end up reposting or redoing the video. So I don't take the video and then repost it, but just redo the same technique
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
the time is right. But rope is not flashy, even though they say like there's certain knots that don't work. But if you have your teeth available or even can grab,
Who
The
even
rope-
uses rope anymore?
it's very inconvenient. Oh, and then the thing is, like, try to subdue someone. Try to put rope on Brian and see if it works. If he's really fighting.
Yeah.
Exactly. People are like, but what if they tie me up? Well, we're like, how did they get you tied up? It's
Yeah,
like,
the
what
scenario thinking goes very far. Like,
people seem to think that you just pop into certain places. Like the only time that you just pop into being tied up is if maybe you were at a bar and someone slipped something into your drink and you were passed out and they got you tied up.
yeah,
Like
but
if you're tied up, you probably had some way to fight before that. So why did you get to that point? What got you to that point? You should have been wiggling and screaming, and that's why we teach the drop, flow, wiggle, scream, is because it's so easy for people to understand. And if we can get them to fully commit to just that, they're willing to fully commit to a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But the thing I can't stand is when people are just willing to give up.
Well, it's,
All
it's,
the
it's-
techniques that we've tested works for everyone. We get a lot of comments. Oh, does this
Not for everybody.
almost everyone?
well, it's how you set it up, right? So I usually
Yeah.
tell them to have a belt, shoelaces, and a bobby pin. Those three, like, it will work. Like if you have, let's say it's zip ties, the bobby pin will get you out. It doesn't matter if you have strength or not. And then also the shoelaces will get you out. But people will stay there in their pajamas, try to slam it down, and then it doesn't work. And they didn't have their friend available to cut it out, because you have to practice this. And they're like, oh, this doesn't work. I'm like, well, did you set yourself up for success? Like, I don't go out of the house without my shoes with shoelaces just because I wear them. But I don't wear a lot of flip-flops or stuff like that. And I have a bobby pin always. Like, it's just in my pants. Like, it's not like a hassle. They're like, oh, well, where am I going to wear this? I'm like, just put it in your pocket. You wear your keys and all these other stuff. Your phone is always with you.
It
Put
has
it in
a
your
little
phone.
clip.
That's what I'm saying. But people try one thing and then say, okay, well, it didn't work. I'm like, you didn't set yourself up for success.
My most aggravating comments on any video we ever post is it doesn't work or just shoot them. And we've kind of covered both of them in this podcast, but it's just, that's the two biggest things that aggravate me more than anything to see on a video. Just like there's absolutely no context to why it doesn't work. And a gun is the answer to everything. That's the two things that aggravate me more.
But the
than
one
anything.
that doesn't work, Dad even comment back on one, and then just left it alone. And then all of a sudden, like a whole army of
Well,
commenters.
no, that was, so we were doing a choke against the wall,
Mhm.
and she was explaining, if somebody has you choked against the wall, trap the hand, windmill your arm over, turn your body, just explain that. And this guy says that, you wasn't putting full force. I said, well, if I put full force, she couldn't talk.
Yeah.
So that would like kind of mess up the ability of actually trying
She
to teach
can't
the technique.
teach if she's going.
Exactly.
And he just kept arguing, and I just like took him out, brought him out a little further until he was kind of like, he was like off the ledge. It was just, he wasn't making any sense anymore. And then I just like stopped.
Well, what people don't understand is, like, for instance, the video I did last night about jumping out of a vehicle. If I did that at a higher speed, they would have probably taken it down. The reason why I do things slow is because it won't get flagged for safety or whatever is.
So
I have
flagged.
like where they put like this, the acts in this video are considered dangerous and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you do it slow enough, they won't trigger that and it won't get reported. And honestly, some of the things that they say I need to try, like they say like, oh, try it at 80 miles an hour. I'm like, this is like life or death. Like, I'm going to be seriously injured if I jump out, but at least hopefully I will not die. Because I could jump out at any time, but if I just go face first, I'm probably not going to make it. With the technique I'm showing you, there is a chance you can make it even at 80 miles an hour. Plus, if you're going from A to B, if you know point B is the end, you better jump out of the vehicle and hope for the best.
You have a better chance if you injure your arm jumping out of the vehicle. People don't get that. I'm over here going, you're not willing to risk maybe a broken arm to save your life? Are you crazy?
Some people comment that I'd rather die. I'm like, I don't think you really do. You're just typing.
Exactly.
It's the edgelords. I can't stand them.
Yeah, if there was like the perfect self-defense technique, everyone would go buy it at Walmart.
That is very true. I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I know.
Don't judge me. I got this card. It's everything.
Yeah, there's nothing that works for absolutely everybody 100% of the time for every situation. There's just not. So we cover all of these options and people are like, but what if? But what if? But what if? I'm like, that's an entirely different video.
Well,
and I'm over here like,
you keep doing the videos. That's all I can say. But the problem is people will see one video, then don't go to the other one you're posting about it. For instance, I did a video on getting choked in a car. Now, the likelihood of that happening, but that became a whole thing because it was, okay, I did it with a mechanical lever where if you push fast enough and you're pushing out, you're going to get enough slack to push your head through there. It just, even if the person is sitting behind you. And then it became, okay, well, what if it's an electrical seat? So I found a way to do it. It wasn't perfect, but I had someone do it. I tried it out and it worked. And then someone said, well, this is a better way. And I tried that one and that works, but it just continuously try to do more. And then people are like, well, you could hurt someone because they're not seeing, they saw the verse video, but then not the other ones where other situations happen. I'm like, I can't be responsible for that. I'm showing you what works in that particular situation. If you feel your situation does not apply, one, don't watch it because it's not relevant to you. Second, go to another video.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I agree. And I know your time, you're going to have to get back. We're going to have to wrap it up. But I have a question for you. Have you ever, you mentioned this a little bit, have you ever ended up like flagged? Have you ever been had a community violation?
I did. I had one, and that was interesting because some of my stuff is really like some of them get put under review. I did a how to get out of. I did a video on how to escape being choked with like a plastic bag or something like that. And then they asked, well, what if it's a hefty bag? So which is not recommended because there's scent in hefty. So when you try to suck in an air bubble, you use your tongue and it taste is horrible. So I did that one and then it got pushed to review immediately. And it took about an hour for them to approve that video as education. And then another one got completely flagged. So I did a video where it was like a bouncy music and I did all the requests I've had. So taped to a chair and you just saw one shot of each and it was kind of like EDM music.
Yeah.
And they completely removed that. I appealed it. I have no reason why. They say it violated TikTok policy on sexual content. And I was fully clothed. I had nothing weird about it, but they felt it was sexualization or something. And I'm like, okay, well,
this has been really cool. It's been really cool to actually get to talk to you and hear about a lot of your background because I mean, we kind of do a lot of back and forth on TikTok.
Yep.
You know, it's like, he's best for that.
Yeah. So you guys are in North Carolina, right?
Yes, sir.
Where in North Carolina?
Lexington, North Carolina.
Where?
Lexington, North Carolina.
Oh,
it's between Greensboro and Charlotte.
Davidson County.
Gotcha. I have family in Emerald Isle, so I usually travel up. So maybe if I'm close by and I can make the time, I can swing by. We can do some self-defense stuff.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Emerald Isle, yeah, we go out to the Outer Banks every once in a while. We're actually going to be doing a abduction prevention, family safe kind of weekend at Myrtle Beach this fall. So we're looking forward to that.
Is that like a whole getaway weekend or something where you teach it?
Yeah.
Wow. Is there a lot of people enlisting for a course like that?
We just started posting about it. Just got everything finalized. So we don't know yet.
We've worked with and done some stuff at other people's conferences and different things before, or I have, but this is the first time we are trying to host something like this ourselves. So I'm brand new to this, to be completely honest with you. We just signed the contract with the resort to do it for the weekend. So I'm looking forward to it. Kind of curious as to how it's all going to work out. So
I think it's if we keep trying to show safety and be there for the people, I think eventually it will be rewarding enough.
yeah, it
Maybe
does
it would.
well in this area, and we travel out and do some things at for businesses, churches, and then in our own facility, and we do those type of events, and they do well here. So this is our first kind of like to get out and travel.
And this is our first destination event.
Yeah.
What would be really cool is one time if you're just going to be in town, we can do a joint seminar and we can do the prevention and self-defense stuff, and then you do all of the escapes and stuff. That would be a cool joint event.
Yeah.
People don't believe me, so I went fishing, and people, I guess, someone saw me on TikTok. They're like, "Well, I'll do the tie up. I'm a fisherman." I'm like, "Okay." Like it's. And I got out. He's like, "I don't know how you did that." I'm like, simple. Like people, a lot of people don't believe it. They see videos and they're like, "Oh, that's just BS." I'm like, "Okay, where are you? I'll come show you how to do it."
I know. I think our first video that we saw of you, we were like, we should try this.
Yeah.
And I think I had shown Brian a video. I was like, Brian, this dude that looks like Jason Bourne is teaching people how to escape this.
I get that one a lot. I'm
You
like,
do? Okay.
All right. Well, I thank you very much. I really appreciate you joining us on the podcast. If you don't mind, and I'm sure you'd probably like to, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you.
so you can find me as Dutch in the USA on any of my platforms. So on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, even Snapchat.
Awesome. I didn't know you were on Snapchat.
We have Snapchat accounts. So
I'm trying to do the whole spotlight thing, and it's very hard because they review content before it's posted. So I've posted like 12 videos that they deem not needed for spotlight, which really they're good safety tips. People should see this, and they're like, nope, not selected. So that's tricky, but I am on there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much. And I guess we will see you later, and we'll probably get up with you sometime about trying to do some type of joint event.
That sounds awesome. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to the Impact Defense Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about how to keep yourself safe, check out the articles, videos, courses, and seminars at www.impactdefensenc.com. We also do training for security teams, churches, businesses, groups, and more. Stay sharp, stay focused, and train hard.